Hey guys, welcome to No Quitters with Dan Ray.
And Venny Saucedo.
And last week, you guys heard a little bit about where I came from, what I did to basically develop this no quitters mentality. And today, we're going to hear my partner, Benny's story, see where he came from.
Awesome.
So, Benny, tell us a little bit about, what was your upbringings?
All right. So, grew up in the South Bay area here in Southern California, and came from first generation born here. Both my parents came from Mexico, from Zacatecas and Durango, and my mom she used to clean houses when I was a kid, and then my dad was a waiter. He was a laborer, and so my dad was always at work. He worked the morning lunch shift, and then he worked the evening shift. So it was like double shifts every day. He was off maybe like a Tuesday or something. And growing up as a kid,
Mhm.
my dad, I think he went to one baseball game growing up. Um, and for me, it was like, as a kid, you want your parents to be there, but he came to one game, and I remember um, that I went up to bat and I hit that ball so hard. Man, the ball went way over the outfielder's head, and the coach was like, "Dude, why don't you ever hit like that?" And I'm like, "My dad's here." He's like, "You should come more often." And it was like, for me, it was exciting because I wanted to show my dad, like, boom, I can play. And it was cool. And later on in life, I had a talk with my dad, and I told him, I appreciate that you showed me how to hustle, how to work, and to be honest and fair. And he said, without me even saying anything about baseball, he said, most of the time when you were growing up playing sports, I was at work wishing that I could have been there.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, damn, because
Yeah.
I told him, I go, you only came to one game. He goes, I know, just one game. He goes, and so I had to punch the clock. He said, I didn't have the freedom to take days off and do those things. And I worked two jobs. And so I had to understand that. And I did as an adult, because that's one of the main reasons why as an adult, as a parent, I said, I'm not going to miss out on those things with my kids. And I completely did the opposite. And so I would sign up to be the coach, the assistant coach, and always want to be a part of it, because I figured if I sign up to be a coach, I'm always going to be there.
Right. That moment your dad told you, you felt it. It was
Right.
felt.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was on the other end and I wasn't going to say anything, but he brought it up and I was like, oh, damn. So the feeling was, yes, I missed that he couldn't be there at the games. And his was like, I wish I could have been there. So, but
So
my mom was very supportive. She would always take us to practice, drop us off. But because there was four of us, one was doing wrestling, one was, different times playing soccer, basketball, softball, baseball, everything. And so we were always being taxied. My mom would just boom, 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 drop us off. I would ride my bike to practice. And so growing up, we didn't have much. We My dad was brave enough to buy his first property when the rents went up in Santa Monica. So born in Santa Monica,
Mhm.
and the rents, I remember my dad said our rent went from like $150 to like $300 a month. And to him, that was a lot of money, because back then I think he was making like $2 an hour, $3 an hour plus his
Mhm.
tips. And so it was like, oh, we got to do something. This is too expensive. And someone, I don't remember who it was, told my dad, hey, you should consider buying a property. And he's like, how am I going to buy a property? The rents are going up and blah, blah, blah. And he ended up buying his first property in Inglewood. And we moved to Inglewood. And I remember he bought like two units, two houses on a lot. And he paid like $22,000 at that
Oh
time.
God, what year was that?
1976, I think.
Jesus.
Yeah. And so he was like, oh man, now I have a mortgage payment. But his payment was like the same thing that the rent was, like actually before they raised the rent. So it worked out. And so we moved to Inglewood, and Inglewood was a little rougher because it was few Hispanics. It was mostly African American. And for us, it was different now because we come from Santa Monica. It was all white people and Hispanics. And then all of a sudden we're like, whoa, and it was pretty rough growing up, I mean, fights in school and stuff like that. But it was like, I wouldn't pick them, but you
You had to finish him.
you had to finish them, And so it was cool, you know, because
Mhm.
some of really good friends that were neighbors. I remember my mom would make buñuelos like at Christmas time,
Right.
and he was African American, and he was a good friend, and he would come
Mhm.
over, and he went home with buñuelos, and he's like, "Mom, Junior's mom made these giant cornflakes, you know." He's like, "They're so good," and it was just, you know, it was cool. It was cool. It was a lot of
Wow,
fun.
man. I
Yeah,
mean, even though you didn't have much, when you say much materialistic stuff, right?
yeah,
But in reality, your family, it was pretty wholesome,
yeah,
right? I
absolutely.
mean, to take all the kids to different activities,
Yep,
right? And to have a dad and have a roof over your top, and your mom, they
yeah,
actually caring
yeah,
about the activities that you guys are doing,
yep, yep,
right? A lot of people are still missing that, so it was pretty wholesome, right?
yeah.
But
It
you went
was
from living you went from living in Santa Monica. Now you're in Inglewood,
right,
right? How old were you then?
right. We went from an apartment to a house, and
Okay.
I was 6 years old. I was in the first grade, and started a new elementary school, and you know everything was new, and it was a good change because we got exposed to a different area, you know, because you're in your little uh environment of wherever you're at, and then you go
Hmm.
to something new and everything's strange. You don't know anyone, and it was fun. I started getting into trouble at school, but my trouble was just, you know, talking too much because I was all high energy. I was always high energy, and I always used to get mad because the teacher always sat me in the front, and it was because I couldn't shut up. You know, I was always talking to the neighbors or whatever, whoever was sitting next to me and stuff. So yeah, I was
Or-
always high energy.
Nice, nice. You talk about having, being born with something, being able to speak, and who knew,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah, and
You grow up to be a speaker, right?
yeah.
So after the sixth grade, right? Do you have any challenges or?
Challenges. My challenges growing up was, huh? Let me think of that. Having to walk to school, and this was the biggest challenge, was walking to school because I missed the bus, and I was at the bus on time, and here comes the bus on El Segundo when we moved to Hawthorne. The bus is coming, and I'm like, there it goes, because it was packed. It was full. It was
Right.
coming from an area where a lot of people rode the bus, so it was like when it was packed, the bus driver just kept going. I mean, there was no room for anybody, so he just kept going, and I
Kept-
was like, Chingao, now I gotta walk like 2 miles to school. And so I had to hustle to get there on time before I got in trouble or whatever. But
Got you.
that was a challenge. I mean, everything else was pretty good. I wasn't much of a troublemaker or anything like that.
Even though you were
Challenges.
surrounded by a lot of it, I mean,
I
uh,
I remember our
mm,
challenge. The only other challenge was, all right, we got home from school at like 3 o'clock, and my sister, my older brother, and my younger sister, and we were like, okay, mom gets here at like 4 o'clock. You wash the dishes, you take out the trash, you make the beds, bop, 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 bop. So when mom got home, everything was done. We all had our duties, and my brother or my sister started cooking. So, because mind you, she went and had to clean somebody else's house, and now she had to come home. Last thing she wanted to do was clean ours, right? So,
yes.
we did our part to make it easier when she got home, and you know, and so that was the only thing. It was like washing dishes. I got good at washing dishes, and I remember my dad used to get pissed because I'd be washing dishes, and he's like, "Hey, ¿qué está haciendo? Él no debe estar lavando trastes."
Wow.
And my mom would say, "No, no te preocupes, no se le va a caer nada." You know, she was, she always had this sarcasm,
Right.
but it helped. You know, I mean, she said, "Nunca sabes, te va a tocar una vieja huevona or whatever," because my mom was always real, man. She
Better
would
learn how
just.
to wash dishes, you wash your clothes, wash everything.
We learned how to sew, bro. I even learned how to knit with a aguja de gancho. I was like,
Wow.
yeah. So you
I
never
mean,
know.
to me, it sounds like that was a pretty good support system. I mean, you guys
It
pretty much
was.
supported each other. Your mom would take care of you guys' activities, drive you guys, like you said, in a van. Your dad would put in some work and miss out on opportunities, right? But then you guys developed this. You guys, you're one out of how many?
It was four of us.
Four of you total, right?
Four of us.
And
Yeah.
where do you stand as
I'm
far
the
as?
third one,
Got you.
and we're all 2 years apart.
Ah,
Yeah,
okay.
and my sister's the youngest one.
Got you,
Yeah.
got you. But you even at such a young age, you guys had that support system where you guys wanted to do all that stuff before mom got back from work, right? Which I think
Well, it's not
right
that
now.
we wanted to, we had to.
Oh, got you.
We had to help her out, you know?
Yes.
And so if not, iba a ser una regañada. And if I was travieso, so I was always getting into, trouble with my mom or my dad. And my dad never hit us, but my mom would whoop our ass. Woo, cintariadas, like because I deserved them, you know? I even thanked her when I got married. I said, Mom, all those cintariadas, they paid off, kept me in line. So, yeah.
Got you. Got you. Um, how about your siblings? Like, did they ever step away or like get into more trouble?
Yeah, my oldest brother Miguel, he was the oldest. So when we went to a new school, um, I think he got caught up with the wrong kids, and
It's
so he
always
got
us,
in
the
trouble.
oldest, man. It's always us, the oldest, that start getting into trouble.
Yeah, and so he got caught like smoking weed in eighth grade or something like that, and he got suspended, and it was a big deal. And and he was always the one that kind of got pulled the wrong way by the wrong kids, and so yeah, he was the one that steered away. He got into drugs, and it was always a challenge for us because I remember even when I got older, I was in college, in junior college, and I was working a job, full-time job, and then I would see my mom stay up all night worried because my brother wouldn't come home. And that was a challenge, seeing my mom suffer, go through all this pain. She would hear an ambulance and she'd run to the window to look. I don't know, maybe it's my son or something. And so he wouldn't come home for a couple of days, and she's like, Mijo, call to see if he's in jail, call the hospitals and see if someone's there. Like, so as a parent, I think that was a challenging time for us. We 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 built resentment towards my brother because he was making my parents go through all this. So that was a big challenge, is trying
Um,
to get him in line, and he
right.
wasn't having it.
But it also served as an example.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That
Right.
was an example of
What
who
not
not to be like.
exactly, what not to be like, because now you're seeing how much your mom was suffering, right?
Yeah,
Because of
absolutely.
someone's actions. It had to be someone. It's usually someone in the family that's out and about, pushing the envelope, crossing the lines.
Yep, he did that. He
And it
was the
was
one.
him, and it was him.
It was
That that
always him.
that was his thing. How did that affect you? Like,
You know, uh, so I would work after school. I would work, get out at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes at midnight, go home and do homework because I had to be at school at 8 in the morning. And my brother would get home like at 1 in the morning, and we'd share rooms. So he's cracking beers at 1 in the morning, 2 in the morning, watching TV because he can't go to sleep because he's wired up, right? And so he had to pound a couple beers to get a little bit
uh-huh.
sleepy. And so I would get pissed, man, because I wanted to rest, dude. I was exhausted.
Mhm.
And so I that was a big challenge for me, was trying to stay sane and not, want to fight with this guy.
Mhm.
And he 4 years older than me, so he was a bigger guy. But it was just like,
He was hurting your nerves. You're not
he
even
was on my
measuring up.
last nerves, man, every day. And it was like, again, the anger of what he put my mom through and all the shit we had to deal with. And it was just, we weren't having
Accumulating.
it. Yeah, yeah. We ended up kicking him out of the house when my dad said, dude, I don't know what to do. I need your guys' help. Like he couldn't do anything. And so we kind of went against my mom because my mom's like, no, he has problems. And we're like, fuck yeah, he has problems, right? And so we ended up having a meeting,
How
and
old
we
was he?
said he was maybe, I think I was 19
He's 24,
and
3.
he was 20, he was going to be 23. And so we said, you know what? He's up to no good. He doesn't come home. He comes home whenever he wants. He does his thing. So we said, fuck
Stresses
it.
everybody out.
Stresses everybody out. So we pretty much ended up kicking him out of the house.
Mhm.
And he ends up moving to Georgia to kind of get his shit together because he knew here he wasn't going to do it. And
Right,
so he
right,
ended
right.
up moving to Georgia, and he ended up getting it together and working, and he became a normal citizen there. And then he was there for maybe about 2 3 years, and then he came back. And when he came back, he got into it again. And so it was
Wow.
just, that was always our challenge as a family.
What was it? The environment that he was in that got him into it, or
I think the people he was around.
got it, got it,
Yeah.
got it. If
And mind you, this is in the 90s. So
Mhm.
early 90s, it was the crack cocaine epidemic. Like, it was
Yes,
it was everywhere.
right.
And so the people he would hang out with were going to nightclubs, and everybody was doing drugs. And it was like a norm, the people
Right.
he was around, and it just escalated and got worse, you know?
So that's just California, high paced life. You know,
Yep.
everybody's trying to keep up with each other. And okay, Georgia was a lot slower pace, right?
Slower pace, but he got bored
Yeah.
and he had to
But he
come
got
back.
sober, he got clean.
Yeah, no, but he told us, hey, I'm coming for a vacation. And we're like, all right, cool. You know, we haven't seen you. You're doing good, blah, blah, blah. He
Yes.
comes back and never goes back. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get that. I get that. He was 23 when everything happened. Did
Yeah.
you ever think about that moment the rest of your life?
Yeah. I'll never forget this one time my mom said, "Ve, busca tu hermano. He's going to be, he always hangs out at that motel over there on Century and Inglewood." And I'm like, fuck, yeah, I got to go to work. I got to go to school, but I got to go. As a good son, I was like, all right, mom, I'll go. So I went down there and I see my mom's car because he would take it. And my mom couldn't go to work because he would keep it for 2, 3
Oh,
days. I mean, it was an issue. And I see it in the back and I'm like, fuck, he's here. So I go back there and he sees me walking down the driveway of the motel going towards the truck. And he runs down, he jumps in the truck and he's hauling ass to leave. And he almost hits me. I had to jump out of the way. He was going to hit me. And I was like, what the fuck? He could have killed me. And that's when I thought, dude, he's not all there. Like he's on a binge. And that's when I saw him at his worst. And I was like, this is not going to work. And that's when we ended up kicking him out. I was like, fuck
gotcha.
that. He almost killed me. Like,
Right.
we
Now,
can't have that. He was stealing from my parents. And so it became an issue.
it's an issue, right? And
It
a
was
lot of
an issue.
people are dealing with this, right? And
Right.
they got someone that is going through drugs or some sort of addiction, right?
Right.
Now that you're a father, right? I know you have your older son, right? Would you handle the same situation if one of your kids? Would handle the situation the same if one of your kids got into that?
You know, I always thought, I've thought that, but I said, you know what? Thank God they're not. You know, my kids are
Yeah.
good kids.
Yeah.
I gave them a lot of
They're
attention.
great kids.
But
Yes.
kids are kids, you know, they may experiment, they may try. I mean, fuck, we don't know.
Yes.
But the reality is, if that happened again, I learned something from my mom. I was maybe about 40 years old. No,
Mhm.
maybe 35.
Mhm.
And I went to a seminar. It's called, what's it called? The Landmark Forum.
Got you.
And I learned to forgive and just say, hey, you know what? Fuck it. I may have been upset about something, but I got to get over it and I got to move on.
Yes.
And I remember calling my mom and I said, Mom, you know, I want to forgive. I want you to forgive me for being so mad at you because you were protecting Miguel when we were going through all that. And she said, well, I understand that you were upset, but she said, look, you're doing good. You didn't really need much of my help. You were kind of on the right path. Your sisters were on the right path. You didn't need much help. He needed all my help. And I couldn't turn my back on him. And I was like, holy shit.
Yes.
I want to be a parent like my mom.
Right.
I didn't understand it at that time, but I said, you know what? That's who I want to be like. And I realized I had to forgive. So I ended up forgiving my brother and he became closer and then he stopped. He got off of drugs. He like for good. He stayed off and he started coming around. And the moment I dropped that
Hate. Yeah.
resistance,
Mhm.
he dropped it. And we became tight after that. And it was a great thing. It was good. But I had to forgive. And
It's
it was,
amazing because the heart opens and it closes all the time,
Yep.
right? And sometimes things happen to us where we just close our hearts,
yep.
right? And most of the time when it's in between you closing the heart, it's not worth it, right? But we don't understand that until we get a little bit older. That maybe if it's going to close down my heart, right, which keeping it open allows you to be in a much higher state of a lot of things, right?
Right.
And so it's amazing that you let that go,
Yep.
right, and open again, because I'm sure it was affecting you in a way. That's amazing, man.
Yeah. And it allowed him to recover and gave him the place to, hey, we're
Mhm.
supportive, whatever. I forgive you. And it worked out. My mom was super happy after that because,
Yeah.
we couldn't be in the same room at the same time. And that was like nobody in the house could see him. It was really
Wow.
bad. Yeah.
The rest of them are still cool with them, or
Everyone's cool. Everyone
Yeah.
was cool with it after that. But
got it?
yeah.
Got it. Well, man, I want to know what makes Benny Saucedo Benny Saucedo.
So I'm going to share something with you.
Yes.
So having grown up, seeing him go through that,
Mhm.
I took a class in high school that was it was a police officer from Hawthorne. I'll never forget. His name was Ron McNally. And
Mhm.
that guy taught a class about community and about the police. And it was just like an elective. And I took it and I said, that wouldn't be a bad idea to be a cop, right? I said, yeah, I definitely don't want to go this route, you
Right,
know?
right.
And so,
And that was inspired by your brother.
yeah.
Yeah.
But Officer McNally inspired me to say, hey, you know what? Let me look into maybe I want to look at this police career. I was my senior year. I graduate, I go to college, I get 2 degrees, one in administration of justice and one in criminal justice. And when I'm graduating in 96, I submit my application for the Secret Service because I wanted to be a federal agent. I said DEA, FBI, or Secret Service. And I submitted my apps and I did my interviews. I passed everything. I was in the background check. And it was, I'll never forget, it was September 96, bought a house, got married, and I'm getting ready to go to Quantico, Virginia for training with the Secret Service.
Wow.
And they put a freeze on hiring, just like they put the freeze on hiring in January of this year when Trump came into office. They put the freeze on hiring then, and they said, no more hiring any federal agencies. And I thought, well, how long is that? What do I have to do? And the guy that was in charge, he said, Vinny, this could be, we don't know. It could be 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. We don't know. I said, okay, well, cool. Like when it does open back up, am I like the first in line because I'm like done? He said, no, you're going to have to start over again. And that process had taken me like 9 months to a year. The applications, there were 7 different applications. The longest one was 40 pages. They went and talked to elementary school teachers that I had. They talked to neighbors when we were growing up. Like they were doing a massive background.
Mhm.
And so I thought, fuck, I got to start over again. And at that time, we got married. We were already doing flips because we started doing flips and I was working the supermarkets. So I had worked
How
for
old were you when you started doing flips?
24.
You started doing flips?
At 24, yeah.
Jesus.
So Anna and I were dating. We weren't even married yet. And with our credit cards, we started pulling money from our credit cards or putting the repairs on our credit cards. Mind you, back then we were buying properties for like 62,000, 70,000, selling them for 85. We'd make 10 grand, 15 grand was a lot of money
It's a
back
lot.
then. And so
Yeah.
I'll never forget. I had a property on 134th and Wilmington in Compton, and it was a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. We're trying to sell it. I didn't have a license, so I wasn't selling it. We had the agent that was helping us get the properties, had it on the market for like 3 or 4 months, and we couldn't sell it. And I was like, dude, you got to sell this property. It's not moving. And he laughed and he said, dude, it's not that easy to sell properties. You try it. And I said, I am. And if I sell it, I'm not going to pay your ass. And so I told Anna, hey, we got to do something because I'm making the mortgage payment over here and I'm making this one. And then she goes, I'm going to make you a flyer and you need to go door knock on your day off. And I'm like, I don't know shit about real estate. Mind you, I was waiting for the callback, right?
Right.
So then she goes, look, I made the flyer. I just put the payment. The payment's like $725 a month, includes everything. And I was like, all right, well, started door knocking. I got halfway down the block and a lady said, yeah, we saw you guys are fixing it. How much is it? And I said, well, it was 72,000 or whatever. The payment was 700 and something dollars with taxes, insurance and everything. And she's like, we pay 650 here. Let me call my husband. She called her husband. Long story short, that same day in the afternoon, they came in after work to the office. They got pre-approved. My wife wrote the offer at that time because I don't know what to do. She wrote the offer, sold the house the first time I ever tried. So here I'm thinking, this is papitas, right? I got this shit. This is easy. If I want to do this, I can do this all day long.
Me not even trying.
Yeah, one day sell the house the first time.
Right.
So I believed it was easy. In my mind, I thought, this is a piece of cake. So I said, you know what? While they call me, I'm going to try this. And I left the supermarkets and I came into selling real estate. And it was the best thing I could have ever done. And thank God they put the freeze on hiring. And I'm glad it didn't work out that way. And I was able to to have the life I have now.
Fantastic. Did any of that studying that you did help you become who you are now?
You know, if there's one class that I can say in college that prepared me for life, my counselor told me, you have to take a speech class, take a debate class. And I was like, I was the one that never raised my hand because when I was like in the third grade, I raised my hand. I said the wrong answer. Everyone laughed and I felt stupid. So I said, I'm never raising my hand. And I never raised my hand. I would not raise my hand. And I'm in college. And she's like, you got to take this class. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going to take it. So I ended up taking it. Some guy that I sat in the back with, real quiet guy, we ended up winning the fucking tournament that at the end of the year. And I was like, oh, I can talk in front of people. And I wasn't nervous and it felt good. And so that removed those blocks that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And it was game over after that.
That's amazing, man. So basically your life has been aligned from one step to another. You got a pretty supportive family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then your brother was actually getting derailed from
Yep.
where that inspired you to be somebody, went to school.
Yep.
This thing, they made you take this class, right?
Yep.
To start speaking in public, right?
Yep.
The whole thing with trying to become an FBI agent didn't go down,
No.
right? As that didn't go down, someone's talking smack, and you're like, well, fuck, it is that easy. You went knocking down the block. You sold the house within a few hours, I guess.
An hour and a half, maybe.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It was crazy. And then after that, we kept doing flips and we bought our first place in Rolling Heights, a 4-bedroom, 2-bath condo. And it was just, I was even scared at the beginning because I was like, wait a minute. You want to sell the condo? We just got it. We paid like 72 grand. I think we put like $3,000 down and then we sold it for like 125. And then I told Anna, we're going to stay under 250 the next house we buy, 250. And she's like, I found one for 303. I said, no, 250. I told you that's a payment and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, we're fine. I'm going to get my commission because she was licensed. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I'm going to use my commission for our closing costs. And then we're going to move this money there. And I was like, that's too much. And then we move into it and it was like piece of cake. We got the keys when Steven, the oldest, was released from the hospital when he was born. So we went right into that house.
Wow.
And so after that, we kept doing flips and then we bought other properties and it was game over after that. And she's like, hey, you need to chill out. And I was like, no, you're the one that showed me this. And now we're like taking off. And so, yeah, it's been good.
It's been
Thank God.
amazing.
It's been amazing. Absolutely. And a lot of those times where I couldn't explain how things happen, and I know that it was something bigger than me, and I know God always put the right moments, the right scenarios, like not getting hired,
Yeah.
putting the freeze. Like I know that was God sent because
Like a house not selling and
he
then
had
he
something
talking
bigger.
shit.
He had something bigger for me.
Right.
Exactly. All that. And so I never question it.
Right. You know, one of the reasons why I asked you to become my partner with the agent and company is because I like your style, right? That's the biggest reason. I like your style. I see you as, a role model when it comes to being a parent.
Thank
right?
you.
And I see you now. I'm understanding a little bit more where that comes from, right? If you were to describe like your life rules or pillars, however you want to call them, right? Do you have any of those that you can maybe suggest to our listeners, right? So that way they can live a better life, more wholesome.
Yeah. Well, people always say as an investor, and they have questions, and as an investor, and I was like, look, I'm going to tell you something. The best and greatest investment you will ever make that gives you the greatest return is family. And I see you doing that. So you're already doing the right things, but you will always get the greatest return from investing in your family.
Mm-hmm.
And that means time, the time of giving them, the time of being with them, raising them, traveling with them, doing everything you can for them. And I learned this from an experience that I had when I was working with I learned that over years of seeing my parents having to work so hard and all that. But there was an investor that I was working with. This was like 2010. And
Mhm.
this guy was like super wealthy, owned 2 private jets. When he traveled, he had like
Wow.
7 executives with him and everything. And he was one of my investors. And the guy, his tax accountants told him, hey, we're only going to move about maybe 5 million into the Southern California market. That's it. Let's test it out. And so he was buying, flipping. We were doing business. And one day he calls me and he's like, hey, Vinny, I'm gonna be off the radar for like the next month. And I was like, is everything okay? He said, not really. I'm going through a family crisis. My 12-year-old son took his life. And when he said that, I was like, my kids were 10 and 11 and like 7. I was like, what the fuck could have been going through that kid's mind at 12?
Right.
Maybe he didn't have someone who could talk to him, understand him, spend time with him. I don't know. He was one of the most successful investors I've ever met. And here something happened. There was a disconnect.
Right.
And I thought, man, when I was 12, I was concerned about my bike having a flat,
Right.
and here this kid took his life. So I
Over
thought,
something stressful, you know what I mean?
right. I
12.
said, I don't ever want that to happen to me or anyone that I know. We want to be there for our kids or friends or relatives or nephews or whatever. Like, we always have to make sure that things are good, because you never know when that's going to turn. And
Yeah.
sometimes there's no turning back for them. And unfortunately, there always is a chance. But if we don't catch it before, we can lose someone like
Right.
that.
Right. Well, most people grow up with this, now, how would I say it? Limited amount of love,
Mhm.
right? Very restrained. And so it's common for someone to just feel like they're not getting that love, right?
Yeah.
Later on, they end the prisons, and you know what I mean. A lot of the justice system is because some love crimes, right? They went to jail because of a girl. They went to jail because of a guy,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth, right? And since people are not really born with that love being opened, right, they kind of tend to be possessive of the person that makes them feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Right.
Very true.
So, I mean, that was significant. Did it change you from that path? It changed you to becoming more involved.
Absolutely. And I would ask my kids, is everything okay at school? And, how are things with this and how are things with that? And then I remember Andrew, one of my sons, he said, Dad, there's a boy, he's always bugging me and he punches me. And I've said, hey, Pop, hit him back. And he wasn't one to hit back. So we said, all right, we got to do something about this. We went and obviously we spoke to the teacher, we spoke to the parent, and the parent's like, I don't know
Right.
what to do with him. He's like that. And so we signed him up for jujitsu.
Oh,
And
wow.
he gets trained by Lucas Leche, who is one of the top trainers. And he was a world champion at a brown belt,
Oh, wow.
world champion, beating black belts. And
Mhm.
so he trained my son for maybe about 6 months. And then we get a call one day from school. Oh, Andrew got in trouble. And I'm like, what happened? This kid was hitting him and he beat him up and pinned him. I said, oh. So here we go into the principal's office and they said, Andrew, we can't have this behavior. I said, well, what happened? Well, he beat up this kid. I said, the same kid that we've been telling you has been hitting him. We told the teacher. We even spoke to the parents. And the parents were like, yeah, but he beat him up. And I'm like, this is probably the last time we're ever going to talk about this. And he's never going to do it again. I promise you, or he's going to keep getting it like that.
Right.
And that was Santo Remedio, bro. Fix the problem.
Wow.
And it built a confidence in Andrew that as a parent, you want to see your kids have those growths, mental growths,
Right.
And it was good. Proud dad.
Absolutely. I mean, right now you speak and you coach a lot of people,
Mhm.
right? And a lot of them are making a million something
Plus, yeah.
plus, a million plus a year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What set you off to get here, right? I want to get to the real meat and potatoes of what made Venny Saucedo.
Right. So when I first started in the business in '99, I hired a coach like the first week I got in the business, and I invested a lot of money over the years. And there came a time when I'm like, you know what? I can kind of teach these people that everyone needs help. And I got that from my mom. My mom's always trying to help people, and if you can help someone, let's help them. And so I thought, you know what? I've invested all this money to learn this stuff. Let me start teaching some people. So I started doing a mindset class at Century 21 All Stars where I was. Dude, that was like 24 years ago,
Oh wow.
23 years ago. And I started teaching and teaching role playing and doing different things and mindset. And I did it every other week for 18 years. And there are companies that would call me, like the company that coached me for 11 years, Mike Ferry, they called me, and greatest coach in the world, hands down. They called and asked if I wanted to be a coach. And I was like, no, I'm not ready to be a coach. I didn't think I was ready. They obviously thought I was.
Right.
His son called me, asked me to be a coach. And I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I'm ready. And someone told me, one of my coaches at that time, Daryl Rutherford, older gentleman, he told me, Vinny, you're the last one that's going to see in you what everyone else sees in you.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you're already a coach and you've been a coach for all these years. And I was like, I guess you're right. And that's when I decided, okay, now I'll be open to that. And so it was in 2018 that I decided to start coaching, like not full time, but like doing it also as another business. And it's been great. It's a great experience. It's gratifying for me to see people go through the transformation and the struggles and then boom, break through to making,
Mm-hmm.
7 digits. And it's beautiful.
Nice, nice. Now, our podcast is called No Quitters,
No
right?
quitters.
Did you ever think about like, hey, maybe whatever you did, you went through, you obviously you got through some stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you were flipping homes. You left the supermarket when you were younger. You pursued a career in real estate, right? Have you met any challenges where you're like, man, I don't think this is it for me?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I left, I worked Alpha Beta that became Ralph's for 12 years. And I was a manager when I left. And I went to work for Numero Uno Markets, which is an independent chain owned by a Mexican family. And I went to work with them. And mind you, I went from working 40 hours a week to working 72 hours a week,
Wow, that's
having
the
one day
Mexican,
off.
the
One
Mexican
day off.
schedule.
That was a fucking schedule. So I went from that to working long hours, 6 days a week. My only day off was a Wednesday, one day off. And I had a 5 a.m. meeting on my day off in person. There was
Oh
no
wow,
fucking Zoom or nothing.
that's really
I
not a
had to
day
drive
off.
into downtown to go to my meeting at 5 a.m. on my day off. I was like, fuck this.
Damn.
So I started getting upset about having to live that. And mind you, my kids were born. So the first one was born and I was leaving to work. I was leaving to work at 7 in the morning. He was asleep when I left. I'd get home at 10, 11 o'clock at night. He was asleep. And I would never get to see my kid, but other than asleep in bed. And then the second one came and I was like, this isn't a fucking life. I don't want to do this. And so I started getting upset that
Right.
I put myself in that position. And so there came a day when I just quit.
Right.
That was the only fucking time I ever
I don't,
quit in my life.
I don't see that as quitting, man. I say, they have this where I say it now, whenever you say enough is enough,
Yeah.
that's when the leader is born in you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And it came because my my first coach before I even got in the business was Gus Islas.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know Christian that comes here sometimes, his dad. So him and I used to work out every morning, 7 a.m. And I'm working the supermarkets before they filled my schedule to have to be there all day, right?
So there was a time that you used to work out.
Yeah. There was.
Gotta bring that back, man.
We did the Body for Life Fit Challenge with
Mm-hmm.
Bill Phillips. And dude, it was like so empowering. Yet when I would show up to the gym, he would say, dude, why are you still at the supermarkets? Like, you need to lead that job. I know you're not happy. And I was like, no, I'm good. It's $65,000 a year and it pays good and I get bonuses and I have a company car y la chingada. And then he goes, that's not you. You're bigger than that. And he would always tell me that. And then one day he said, you always say 65,000 like it's a lot of money. And I was like, but it is. He goes, I'm gonna share a story with you. And this story he shared was life-changing for me. Because he said, when he was like 15, his older brother, they lived in Guadalajara, his older brother took him to Guanajuato and there was a mine town that he took them to go see the mine.
Mhm.
So they get to this town, and he's watching, and everyone in the town is like younger.
Mhm.
And it's the exchange of the shift, right? So there's a line of people waiting to go into the mine, and people are starting to come out of the mine, and they're coming out, and they're covering their face because of the bright sun, and they're coming out, and they look all dirty, like beat up. And he's noticing that everyone that's coming out are young. And he starts looking around, and he notices there's no older people in the town. So he tells his brother, he goes, "Hey, do they only let like younger people work here?" He goes, "No, anybody can work here. Anybody." He goes, "You want to know something?" And the older brother told him, "You know how much these kids make? Mind you, that had to have been maybe in 1978 or something." And he goes, "These kids, these people make $20 an hour. This was back then." He goes, "Wow, that's a lot of money." He goes, "But why do they only let kids?" He said, "No, they let anybody work. They start at about 14 and they die by the time they're 30. He goes, "You mean they're going to die?" He goes, "Yeah. They only last about 15 years in this kind of work." He goes, "Are they stupid or what? Like,
So
what's wrong with them? They
those-
accept that for $20 an hour." And then my friend Gus looks at me and I go, "They accept?" I said the same thing. "They accepted that for $20 an hour? Death?" And he goes, "You're no different. You accepted 65,000. He goes, "Prostitutes accept a certain amount. You accepted a little more.
Yeah.
You still accepted it." He goes, "How much are you really worth?" And I was like, "There's no price." He said, "Then stop settling." And I was like, "What the fuck?"
Who's this guy's name again?
Gus Islas.
Gus
I quit
Islas.
2 weeks later. And I said, "I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm going for this."
He went in there, cut the umbilical cord, set you free.
Yeah. And then I came into real estate. My first year, I doubled what I used to make there. And I was like,
Like
And-
nothing.
yeah. So it was like 130,000 my first year. Mind you, this is 99. So then,
And you're not working 70 something hours now.
no. And so when my coach said, "You got to do this every day, 3 hours, go to the doors, 3 hours." And I'm like, "Fuck yeah, I'll do that. I don't have to be
3
there for
hours?
12 hours, 15 hours.
How 5 a.m. Meeting on my day off?
No. And so that's what gave me the ability to have the discipline in my schedule routine. And it was game over after that, because I said, why would I go back and work for the feds if at that time G12 was the highest pay on their schedule? G12 was making $107,000 a year, and you had to be there like
Dogging
7-8 years to hit that, you know? And I hit that my first year in real estate. I was like, "Fuck, why would I go do that?" And I'm glad, again, another thing that was God sent, and no turning back, no regrets at all.
That's super badass to hear, man. Because I mean, you had the opportunity growing up to just get involved in the wrong things.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
never did, right? You got you.
Yeah.
You got the examples of what
I did
not
some
to
stupid
do.
shit, but never
Yeah.
really.
We all do.
Yeah.
We all did.
Yeah.
Some of us did some other stupider shit, but we all do.
Yep.
But being involved, you never, I guess, got caught, or you know what I mean, or
Never got, I mean, I never remember I'm going to college for being a cop or a fed. That wasn't an option.
right.
I always was on that track. So I never swayed. I never moved away from that path. I stayed on that path.
Right. Even though you were surrounded by a lot of people that were already
Oh yeah,
in
friends
that, right?
growing up, they're
Even
gangbangers,
part of your family.
troublemakers, drug dealers, everything. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So even not getting involved in that, is a big effort.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
In life, because now a lot of people have this fear of missing out on things, right? You're
Right.
like, yeah, I'm not going to go to the club, but I'm still pursuing this other path in life. Right. And even that is, you're not getting involved, but you're not quitting your life or your way of life.
Yeah.
So like I said, man, initially I like your style. That's what sets you apart from a lot of people, right?
Thank you.
It's how you do the things. How you're doing things is what really what really motivates me to be your partner.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you. And it was mostly design, because once I learned you can design your life, I was like, what do you mean? Yeah, you close your eyes and visualize what you want 10 years from now, put it in paper, and now you have a letter. And one of my friends, I mean, my coach at that time, Matthew Ferry, he had me do a visualization and write my 10-year vision. And then I was always around the right people, and the support system always helps.
yes,
And so that I was like, well, you mean I could just pick whatever? Yeah, it's your dream. You pick whatever. And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, cool. Vacationing and doing this and traveling the world and being there with my kids. And one of my biggest uh, goals was, after my kids are older and even after they get married, I want to travel with them every year.
right.
And it's been the way we've been
You
doing our
you know
thing.
what's even more powerful than that? They want to travel with you.
That's my Super Bowl
Yeah.
ring of champion for myself,
Mhm.
because yeah, I'm blessed. My wife and I are blessed that our kids want to spend time with us, and I know a lot of people that their kids don't want to be around their parents,
Right.
and
But you guys do all kinds of things. The
we
whole family goes to Vegas, everywhere.
yeah
Vallarta.
yeah. We're having boys' night on Friday with my boys, and Pete's coming with us, but we're going to the boxing matches in Long Beach. And,
Mhm.
we have boys' night. We have my wife and I date night. We travel alone. We used to travel a lot more alone, but now the kids make us feel guilty. They're like, why are you guys going to go on your own? How are you guys going to go without us? And it was like, yeah,
And they're all grown up.
and they're grown up. And they're doing their thing too, and they're doing well. And we've been blessed that they've stayed on the right path. And
Mhm.
I guess, what we've taught them, what we've learned, we've
Mhm.
taught them, and they've moved on, and they're doing good.
Fantastic. That's fantastic, man. Well, just to wrap it up a little bit here, um, you're a well put together man, right?
Thank you.
And in a lot of ways, right? And for our listeners, right? How would you? I know how you would help them, right? But listening to you and listening to your words, what is something that you can influence them to just become a better person, or why
To,
they should listen to No Quitter? Sorry to cut you off there.
yeah, no, 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 no. Well, look, no quitters is a way of life, and everyone is challenged, and you're not alone. Everyone in life is going to be challenged with situations, with lifing, and it's not always what we want, and a lot of times it's stuff we didn't pick, but it's there, and you have to learn to get through it and grow from it. And what do you learn from it? And as much as you hate it, you got to fucking keep going, and you're going to be tempted to maybe do the wrong thing or go the other way or do something easier. And it's not about that. It's about believing in what your dream is, regardless of what people think. When you believe in your dream so much, it doesn't matter what people say. That's just noise. You believe in your heart that this is what you were born to live and be. And if you stay on that path, you're going to get there. And it may not look like you're going to get there, but you'll get there. And nobody said life was going to be easy. But if you push through it, you can make it easier, for sure.
Right. Well, there you guys have it. You guys heard a story, basically my story and his story. You heard Benny have basically was throwing the bait and never went to it. I was throwing the bait and always went to it. So it's both sides of the spectrum here.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why we started the No Quitters podcast for you guys. So you guys can see that though there's always light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And you're not alone. Just know that everyone walking this planet is going through some kind of shit. We have our own things, demons and things we deal with. You're not alone, and this is normal. Our job is to learn and grow from it and continue to move forward. You will get to your destination. If you don't know what your destination, it's time to dig deep and find out what really drives you. But once you find that, it's game over, because that burning desire in your belly is going to wake your ass up every single day to get up and work one step closer towards that.
It's amazing words right there. Very powerful words, Benny.
Thank you.
Good stuff. Well, guys, if you want to listen to our podcast, No Quitters on social media, No Quitters podcast, just No Quitters as it is, with your man, Dan Ray.
And Venny Saucedo.
See you guys on the next one.
Thanks, guys.